Hey guys, Coach Ben here, bigbenchas.com, and today we are talking about the top 3 ways in which you can destroy a sticking point. Alright, what is a sticking point? It is, as the name implies, as you're going through the movement, it's a point in which the bar speed decreases rapidly and traditionally it gets stuck. Traditionally, when the weight's heavy enough, this is where you're going to fail your rep. So for some, it's off the chest, right? That initial just right here on chest level. Or it could be midway, or you could, especially as a shirted bencher, you could have that issue just that final lockout. Alright, so it's going to be unique to the person and what's going on with them. But these are 3 ways in which we can destroy that sticking point. First one, partial range work. Alright, what is partial range work? Simply as it implies, you're going through just part of the range of motion. So if you get stuck about that midway point, what might be great for you is board work. So we're just going to spend more time in that range of motion. So if your only trouble, it's not right here, right? It's more the finish, the midway to the finish. We're just going to spend more time working through that range. So you can do something like board work, right, where you're pressing off of 2 boards staying in that range. You can do floor pressing. You can do pin pressing. You have a lot of different options and variations available to you. You could throw bands on any of those variations just to get even more of that overload at the top through the transition. And you could just work through the full range and just have a real heavy band overload right at that partial. All right. So partial range, great way to attack a sticking point. Alright guys, so this is an example of partial range benching here. We got a bench block on here. You can use boards. Like I said, we can pin press, we can floor press. But, I mean, pretty self-explanatory. We're just going to go through the bench movement and it's going to take us through a partial range. So if you're having trouble from about mid-range onto lockout, this is your chance to hammer that range. Alright? So real simple. I mean, a floor press is going to look the same way. If we're pressing off pins, it's going to look the same way. We're accomplishing the same thing. You could put a variation on it. You could do a board close grip bench. Boom. A little longer range. All right. But that's partial range benching for you. All right. Now, number 2, changing the training stimulus. So what I mean by changing the training stimulus is if you're traditionally just going through regular competition bench press, there's obviously a point when it comes to your sticking point that you're just a little bit weaker, right? You're only as strong as your weakest link. So say your chest is capable of benching 300 pounds, your shoulders capable of benching 300 pounds, but your weak link happens to be the triceps. You may be only a 275 pound bencher with your triceps, then you're only going to be a 275 pound bencher. Even though the rest of your muscle groups are capable of handling more, you're always going to be held down by your weak link. So changing the training stimulus, instead of going through regular competition bench, we're going to keep encountering the same sticking point each and every time because you're not changing too much. Right? Maybe we do some close grip benching. Maybe you find that you're terrible at close grip benching, which is a great thing because if we build that up, it's going to have a huge carryover to your competition bench, which is ultimately what we want to get up, right? So that's changing the training stimulus. Just do a different movement. Do a variation. Throw some bands on the bar. Just do something a little bit different that is going to attack those weak points. So you're weak in the triceps, close grip benching for days, and that should help build up your competition bench. Weak in the shoulders, that's a weak link. Overhead press. That'll bring up your bench press. Alright guys, so changing the training stimulus. So for example guys, if you are weak in the triceps, you know, going from regular competition benching to just changing your grip a little bit. Right? We come in more of a closer grip and we bench like this and you find this is real difficult for you. Alright, then we just stumbled on gold. So this is changing your training stimulus. All right, pound this exercise for days until you get good at it, because I guarantee it's going to have a huge transfer to your competition bench. going through a different type of movement, a little bit of a variation compared to your regular competition style benching. The last and one of the most valuable and underrated and underutilized ways of breaking through a sticking point, isometrics. All right, how many of you actually use isometrics? Probably not too many. All right, isometrics are a fantastic way to attack a very specific range of motion. Okay, so if you're having trouble off the chest, just expel max effort on that a very specific range of motion. So if I set up in a power rack, right, and I have the pins set so that I'm just pressing an empty bar right into those pins, the rack's not going to move, but I'm going to display a max effort force. I'm going to, maybe for 5 seconds or so, I'm going to push with everything I got right off chest level into the pins. All right, and I'm going to hold it, I'm going to push, So I'm recruiting all those muscle fibers. I'm displaying max effort force, something we only really get to do when we're handling max effort weight. And I'm doing it in a very specific range of motion. So I believe the statistics on isometrics, you're going to increase strength 15 degrees below and above the specific range of motion you're working through. So if I'm in this joint range of motion right here, right, I'm strengthening about from here to there, give or take, just by pressing into empty pins like that. And the great thing is max effort force, max muscle recruitment. Okay, so I'm giving it everything I got. And usually we don't get that type of stimulus, guys. So isometrics, great way. All right, so if you're having trouble, right, midway or final lockout, just adjust pin height so that you're pressing into that. The point is you're pressing into an immovable object, you're displaying max effort force, and you're working right at your sticking point. Isometrics are awesome. I'm going to show you an example of a great way to utilize them in your training. So for isometric benching, I have in the power rack here, I have set up, this is off chest level, so if you struggle off the chest, this is exactly what you need to be doing. We have the pins set up, and I'm just going to simply press right into the pins. Okay, this rack is not bolted down, so I would lift this rack, but you get the idea, right? You want to get into a nice setup. You get everything that you would normally do, and then you're just pressing into the rack. Everything you got. You can see I'm sinking. I'm displaying max effort force in my weakest point of the lift, in my sticking point. No excuses, guys. If you have a sticking point, those 3 things we just demonstrated, you need to be doing.